Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I'm Zekthar,
And I'm Yuxin.
and we are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We've seen the rise and fall of many empires, and this month we will be discussing the mysterious and sinister Inquisition of the Empire of Man.
Indeed, this month we will chronicle how they came to be, what role they play in the Imperium of Man, with some noble characters along the way. And as usual, we will be ending this month with our Q&A, where we answer your questions you send in the comments.
That's right. But before we start, if you like our stuff, feel free to follow, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really like our voxes, feel free to join our membership program, like Sabender Biden, our very first member.
Quite right, brother. And thank you to our other two members, Hermes Skirky and Anarchy 138. Well, Zekthar, what are we going to be talking about this week?
Well, this week we'll be looking into those strange fellows, the alien killers, the Ordo Xenos.
Righto, how about I start off with their chamber militant, like we did last week?
Wonderful idea. Tell us about the Death Watch.
Well, just like last week when we discussed the Grey Knights, it shall be a summary since we are using all of August to discuss them.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Death Watch, also known as the Long Vigil and the Long Watch, is a unique chapter of the Adeptus Astartes comprised solely of veteran Space Marines that serves the Ordo Xenos of the Imperial Inquisition as its chamber militant. They are the warriors of last resort when the Inquisition needs access to firepower greater than that which the Astra Militarum or a team of its own acolytes or throne agents can provide. Across the galaxy, there are innumerable hostile alien civilizations that threaten humanity, from green-skinned orcs to monstrous Tyranids, sadistic Drukhari, and spectral Catan, and, of course, the undying Necrons. It is the sacred task of the Death Watch to stand sentry against all of these terrible Xenos races, and many more besides. They are ready to act when such ancient evils rise to threaten mankind once more. The Space Marines of the Death Watch form the first, and often only, line of defense against these inhuman horrors. Unlike other Space Marines, the ones serving in the Death Watch are not truly a separate chapter of the Adeptus Astartes. Rather, they are a collection of veteran Space Marines drawn from all of the different chapters who served together in the Inquisition's service for a discrete period of time. To be chosen by one's chapter to serve in the long vigil of the Death Watch is a great honor for any Space Marine. Only the most elite and experienced members of a chapter are ever chosen for this extreme hazardous tour of duty, the specifics of which must be kept secret by inquisitorial order and sacred oath, even from a Death Watch Astartes home chapter. Death Watch Space Marines do not usually form the standard tactical groups like squads and companies generally used by the Adeptus Astartes. Instead, they operate as small, close-knit groups of specialists called kill teams. These kill teams are modified based on the objective and situation. In some extreme cases, they might even send multiple kill teams to eliminate a Xenos threat. You think this is enough sufficient information on the Death Watch, brother?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, in that case, I believe it is time for you to discuss the Ordo Xenos' organization, Zekthar.
Yes. Well, the primary orders of the Ordo Xenos is to defend the Imperium against the threat of the alien, a duty that goes far beyond merely confronting non-human creatures in open conflict alongside the Astra Militarum and the Adeptus Astartes. In order to oppose the Xenos threat, the Ordo Xenos must undertake the dangerous task of investigating and studying intelligent alien species, with a mind to destroying any that is deemed to be a threat to humanity, which is pretty much all intelligent aliens. Yeah. They must learn the nature of inhuman foes, seek out their weaknesses, and learn how to counter their strengths. More than this, they must be ever watchful, not only against what lies in the void beyond, but against other, often more subtle and insidious threats that arise much closer to home. Such threats are often posed by renegade humans, some corrupt, others merely opportunistic. Such individuals are known to trade in alien technology, or seek to hide alien species within the Imperium's midst, often for purposes of experimentation, profit, or bloody entertainment, like gladiatorial pits. Now, mind you, no Inquisitor looks upon the alien as perhaps an ally of sorts. What I mean is someone who could be an ally. The concept of the alien, if it is conscious and knowledgeable, normally means because of this, they are an enemy of man, meaning exterminatus. Now, mind you, this is with good cause. The Ordo's records are littered with bloody atrocities and vast losses of life that have resulted where the alien has taken hold of an Imperial world via stealth, infiltration, or slow taint, as well as countless incidents where the influence of alien technology, misunderstood artifacts, and xenolore have resulted in unintended disaster and tragic consequences. A good example is within the Calexis sector. The job of the Ordo Xenos is particularly complex and a difficult one. This challenge is in no small part because the sector itself lies on the very edge of the Imperium. It is a borderland flanked for much of its perimeter by the uncharted void of space beyond the Emperor's light. No complete or even meaningful control can be kept over this vast, open border, and human and alien vessels can pass largely unobserved and unchallenged despite the best efforts of Battlefleet Calexis and the Imperial listening stations. This dark horizon is crossed regularly by rogue traders, the exploratory fleets of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and even smaller independent merchants and prospecting vessels quite legitimately. Where such legal traffic ends in outlaw traffic, such as smugglers, renegades, noncompliance, and of course, pirates, begins is often a blurred line. Each one of these is a vector, a means by which the alien and alien influences can flow like poison into the Imperium's veins, and the eyes of the Ordo Xenos cannot be everywhere at once. Although all aliens are, officially, viewed as anathema by the Imperium, which means something or someone that one vehemently dislikes. Some are tolerated to a lesser degree. Such species tend to be primitive in technology and culture, or constrained to a backwater planet far from Imperial space. In many parts of the Imperium, contact with starfaring alien species is not uncommon, and on some frontier worlds, trading with aliens is a fact of life. Such underhanded dealings are usually overlooked by the authorities and would certainly not warrant censorship or intervention. Other species, however, represent such a threat to humanity that the Ordo Xenos brands them with the high Gothic stigma, the Xenos Horrificus, marking them as a high priority target who must be hunted down and purged at every opportunity.
So what you're trying to say is that if they happen to find us, regardless of what we try to explain or simply state we are explorers of knowledge, they try to kill us because we are simply not cows or groks.
Well, yes. But before you get to...
You know how much that burns my collar? What? If we did the same thing, the human populace would have been exterminated long ago.
Yes, well...
That's it, Sekthar. I've had it. Man the obelisk gun.
No. Yuxin! Let me remind you, first off, they haven't found us yet. And secondly, we are here to chronicle, not dictate the whims of this universe.
But they... You're absolutely right, Sekthar. My apologies. It just boils my brains. There's no concept of unity in the system.
I understand completely, Yuxin. Now, mind you, you have to understand humanity's side of this. Every Xenos empire in the Milky Way system wants to kill them. So, perhaps a wee bit of leniency?
I would agree with you, but what about the Kindbrock?
Yes, well, they were known far before the Majoris Xenos. That is a fairly interesting question. Perhaps you bring that up in our free form at the end of my chronicling?
Sure.
Yes. Well, where was I? Ah, yes. The brand is not merely applied to the Xenos themselves, but also to any who have had dealings with them. More than one rogue trader has been branded with the mark of Xenos Horrificus, marking him out as an enemy of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, and mankind itself. All right, brother, go ahead. Ask your question.
What would the Inquisitor Xenos do with the Kindbrock?
Honestly, that is actually a very interesting question. So, as you know, Euxin, the Kindbrock were part of the Interrex. You remember that far back, anyways, in the Horus Heresy. They're the ones, anyways. What's that?
Like when we talked about them, I think 2 months ago.
Something like that, yeah. You remember the Interrex?
Vaguely. They were a coalition of alien and human species.
Yes. They had a completely different aspect than the Imperium does. They ended up fighting with the Kindbreck, and then they conquered the Kindbreck, and then the Kindbreck then the Kindbreck ended up joining with them, and they kind of had their own civilization. So both of them ended up working together. Now, why they end up meeting up with the Imperium is because of the planet. I think it was called Nightmare or Murder. It might have been Murder. But it's anyways with the.
If you want to actually know for sure, you can check out our Horus Heresy
Yes.
series.
But anyways, that's where there was this like alien species that was very hive organized, and Space Marines showed up there and they kept getting killed. So Horus shows up with his whole expeditionary fleet, and then the Interrex shows up and goes, no. This is almost like a preserve. As long as they just live there in peace, we don't care. We don't need that planet. Which was really obtuse anyways for Horus and his boys, but they're just like, you know what? We should, come up with some sort of alliance because you guys are human and we would love to, work with you guys. That was Horus's concept. And then, if you recall right, anyways, Erebus just ruins everything. And
he always does.
Humanity ends up exterminating them. So, to me, anyways, it's kind of an interesting question because, okay, so if the Majoris Xenos ended up finding the Kindbrock by themselves, they would just kill them. There's no question in my mind that's what they would have done. Now, if they'd found the Interrex, on the other hand, that's the interesting question. A human society with an alien society, anyways, formed as one. I don't know. I think they still would probably call Exterminatus, but what do you think?
It depends on what Inquisitor it is.
That's a good point. I mean, if it's like that insane guy Kryptman, anyways, yeah, he would have blasted that planet out of existence.
And on that note, there is this interesting person.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Are you saying, anyways, that that's the guy that you want to talk about?
Why? Yes. Inquisitor Lord Fidus Kryptman.
Okay. Well, before you get into him, that loon. What do you think, anyways, of the concept of the Ordo Xenos?
Okay, so in general, I understand it's why it was made. I understand that it's kind of like when it comes to Ordo Malleus, it's dependent more upon the Inquisitor and how they're applying the rules.
Right. I will say, though, that probably the Ordo Malleus out of all, not the Ordo Malleus, the Ordo Xenos out of all three of the Majoris branches has probably got the most clear-cut concept of what they do.
Yes, and it's also the most flexible, I think.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, out of them.
Well, yeah, because, I mean... okay,
when it comes to the Malleus, it's demons must destroy. You try to do anything with demons, must destroy.
Xenos is like, well, they got some cool stuff. Maybe
we may be able to use them. I know that orangutan over there has some skill.
He's a great painter. I think, anyways, they'd be even more flexible, except for the fact that the Ordo Xenos is built off of this very xenophobic concept that the Emperor actually even started. It was just like, straight up, if it's not human, kill it.
Right.
I mean, that's where it starts with, anyways. But at this point, anyways, you do have
probably the huge impact of, the Beast. Also, probably had a heavy impact on that too.
Yeah.
Well, and those bugs that showed up beforehand that slaughtered those people.
Well, okay, that was kind of the Imperium's fault
too. They were fleeing
running away. Yes.
Or-
And they're just like, we have to kill these Xenos. It's like, dude, if you just like step to the side, they'd probably just all go past you. But yeah, no, they're all set up with the xenophobia aspect before it even starts. But I think the thing that you just said, anyways, is fairly interesting. This is the concept that they're significantly more flexible than you would think. I mean, if you look at any of the other two Majorises, anyways, it's just straight up kill it. Well, but for good cause. Don't get me wrong, for very good cause. Well, at least the Malleus, the Heretic is, to me, anyways. I think a lot of times they pull the trigger before really finding out who's guilty. It's the concept of one of these 5 is guilty. So if we shoot all 5 of them, we complete our objective. Well, yes, but the 4 other people give you
they truly take to heart the inquisitorial statement, innocence proves nothing.
Yes. Or the other line that I love by the Heretic is, anyways, burn them all, the Emperor knows his own.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, okay, fine. Let's hear it. Kryptman. By the way, what is Kryptman's first name? I've never actually heard his first name before.
Fidus.
Fidus? Okay. So go ahead and tell us about Lord Fidus Kryptman.
In my personal opinion, claiming this person is logical and making them an inquisitor, in my opinion, is worse than if you were to give an inquisitorial badge to an Archmagos priest.
Mm-hmm.
Like the majority of the inquisitors that have been recorded throughout the time of the Inquisition's birth, his background starts from when he made his first notable footprint in the Imperium's history. In this case, it was his findings on the world of Tyran, or more formally, Tyran Primus.
Aha! So that's where the Tyranids got their name. And let me guess, Krypton's the one who named them?
Yes, but don't get ahead of the story. Tyran was an ocean world on the very edge of the Milky Way galaxy in the eastern fringe where the Adeptus Mechanicus of the Imperium of Man maintained a small research outpost. It was on Tyran that mankind made first contact with the Tyranids in the form of Hive Fleet Behemoth, which destroyed all life on that once thriving world in early 745.M41 and initiated the First Tyrannic War. It was almost a year after the assault that the Imperium would find out about this threat. In fact, if it weren't for Kryptman's arrival on Tyran, the Imperium would be taken completely unaware by the horror of the Great Devourer that was to come. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. On Tyran, Kryptman found a sterile dead world that now bore no sign of the once thriving ocean world it had once been. The planet had been literally sucked dry and scoured of all life, with every scrap of vegetation and even all of its water consumed by the Hive Fleet as needed biomass and nutrients for the creation of new bioforms. As Kryptman searched the ruins of the Mechanicus outpost, he came across a data codex that revealed the full horror of the first Tyranid attack. Suffice to say, the Inquisitor left post-haste to warn the galaxy of the Great Devourer's approach, a terror that Kryptman named the Tyranids, after the first Imperial world they had consumed. The nightmare of the Tyrannic Wars had begun, and the Imperium of Man would never be the same. From this point on, Kryptman would dedicate his life to ending the Tyranid threat to humanity. This dedication was to be a boon to many, but a great tragedy to others.
Right. You're going to start talking about when he actually killed trillions. Wait a minute. He actually helped people?
But of course. Besides informing the Imperium of the Tyranid threat, which may have actually been what saved McCrack, he was active against Hive Fleet Kraken in the Second Tyrannic War against the Tyranids. In fact, it appeared as if he didn't fall off the deep end until the Third Tyrannic War.
Huh.
Yeah. Less than 5 years after the defeat of Hive Fleet Kraken in the Second Tyrannic War, Inquisitor Lord Kryptman noted the telltale signs of yet another Tyranid invasion of the galaxy in 997.M41. He implemented the Kryptman census, burning out dozens of astropaths in the attempt to contact scores of worlds on every fringe of the Imperium in an attempt to divine the location of the new Tyranid's entry vector. Slowly, the responses, and lack of them, formed a pattern, and the venerable Inquisitor was able to chart the course of the Tyranid's latest hive fleet to arrive in the Milky Way galaxy. The venerable Inquisitor was able to chart the course of the Tyranid's latest hive fleet to arrive in the Milky Way galaxy, codenamed Leviathan. This time, the Tyranids were approaching from below the galactic plane, attacking from 2 points spaced wide apart in the shape of a closing pair of jaws, cutting off large portions of the galaxy from warp travel or astropathic communication. In 999.M41, at a great cost in human life, a combined force of Planetary Defense Force troops, 2 regiments of the Imperial Guard, the Ultramarines and Mortifactor chapters, and a Death Watch kill team under the command of Inquisitor Kryptman himself crushed the left half of the Hive fleet on the world of Tarsus Ultra.
Pardon me, brother, but I have to interject here. So you remember when we did our Vox on Cadia?
Yes.
So that's taking place at the same time that this is. So when a lot of people wonder, it's like, well, why didn't the Imperium send more troops? Well, it's because things like, for instance, Hive Fleet Kraken is showing up, or Leviathan.
Yeah. Hive Fleet Kraken. No, that was 5 years prior.
Yeah, Hive Fleet Leviathan is showing up. So they can't literally send everybody. So that's one of the reasons why, like, for instance, the Ultramarines didn't have a huge presence at Cadia because they were dealing with Leviathan.
And I think a lot of people are still being sucked into Armageddon. I think
the third War of Armageddon, I think, was also taking place around this time as well. I just figured that was probably a good point to actually plug in here, and a good example, anyways, of why even something like Cadia, which was a huge, war, and it was very important that they won that one, and they really didn't, and why they didn't send more troops was because we had other things. I mean, could you imagine anyways that they sent the Ultramarines to do that instead of take on Fleet Leviathan? I mean,
then the Eastern Fringe would be dead.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be dead. It would be alive, just in the form of Tyranids.
Yeah, pretty much. And not only that, but think about it this way anyways. McCragg wouldn't be there, and therefore Rabute Gilman wouldn't be there. So there you go. Yeah, I guess you could thank Kryptman for that. Some weird, obtuse way. But sorry, I figured I needed to interrupt a little bit, but carry on. Sorry.
Right. Inquisitor Kryptman became involved in the defense of Tarsus Ultra in, as we mentioned, 999.M41, when a tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan was discovered to be moving towards the planet. Imperial forces arrived to defend the world, which consisted of the Ultramarines' 4th Company, led by Captain Uriel Ventris, a detachment of Mortifactors, led by Chaplain Astador, the 10th Logres Regiment, led by Colonel Octavius Rebelloc, the 933rd Death Corps of Krieg Regiment, led by Colonel Tryman Stagler, and the Tarsan Planetary Defense Force Regiment, headed by Major Aries Satria.
Hey, by the way, if you want to know more about Captain Uriel Ventris, feel free anyways to check out our Vox, Ultramar's Mightiest Heroes. We talk about them quite a bit there. But sorry, carry on, sir.
Kryptman was on hand to share his extensive knowledge of the Tyranids with the commanders in aid of the war effort. He was also accompanied by Magos biologist Bianco Locard, an expert on the Tyranids, and a Death Watch kill team led by Captain Bannon. Despite an initial victory in destroying a hive ship during a void battle, Inquisitor Kryptman wished to invoke Exterminatus upon the world of Chordelis, the next planet in the path of the Tyranids. This was to prevent the world from being devoured and swelling the Tyranid numbers, as planetary evacuation was too slow. Captain Ventris vehemently opposed this decision and supported an alternative solution proposed by Imperial Navy's Lord Admiral Laszlo Tiberius. to slow down the Tyranids by exploding a hydrogen plasma refinery in space to destroy another hive ship. However, Kryptman had lied to Ventress, and with the assistance of the mortifactors of Stardays, invoked the Exterminatus anyways. During the repeated Tyranid attacks on Tarsus Ultra, Kryptman, along with his retinue, studied the biology of the Tyranid corpses killed in combat. During one expedition, a lictor which had earlier landed on the planet attacked his team but was fended off by the Death Watch. Kryptman immediately ordered Captain Bannon to capture the lictor without killing it, which they did.
Pardon me, brother. Once again, anyways. Could you describe for the people, anyways, just briefly what a lictor is?
Okay, imagine a Tyranid crossed with a praying mantis that can camouflage itself to the point that it just looks like a blur on the horizon.
It's almost like a mix between from Terran 42, the alien, and the Predator, right? It's probably the best way to describe it. It looks like the alien, but it's got the camouflage capabilities of the Predator. Yeah? What do you mean here?
No, I don't think so. I don't really see a lot of similarity. The head isn't, definitely.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. Lictors are very sneaky bastards. They can literally hunt down and kill anything. That's their concept.
It's even more surprising how stealthy they can be since they are huge, probably taller than a space marine. They're huge.
Yeah, I think they're about 10 feet tall.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry. You're going to be talking about a lot about a lictor, and a lot of people might not know what a lictor is. So I figured we might talk
a lot by like.
Well, we haven't talked about the Tyranids yet, Yuxin. So we haven't talked about the lictors.
Actually, I think we have mentioned them before.
Well, we've mentioned them, Yuxin, but we haven't actually, talked about them. Anyways, carry on, sir.
This proved pivotal to the war, as Magos Locard was able to concoct a poison from the lictor's genetic structure that would allow the Imperials to defeat the entire swarm by infecting the Tyranid Norn Queen, the source of all the swarm's bioforms. Aboard the last remaining hive ship commanding the tendril of the Leviathan attacking Tarsus Ultra, the Deathwatch team, led by Ventress, accomplished this mission, ending the war shortly before the few remaining Imperial defenders were overwhelmed by the Tyranid swarms. The Imperium had won its first victory against the third Tyranid assault upon the galaxy, destroying the Tyranid swarms nearest to Terra and re-establishing astropathic contact with the worlds between the Leviathan's jaws. Yet, the Leviathan continued to carve its bloody path through the Imperium. Kryptman knew he had to slow down the Hive Fleet's advance to buy time for the Imperial Navy's Battlefleet Solar and Tempestus to muster. With grim finality, he ordered a cordon sanitaire established and decided to implement an almost sector-wide scorched earth tactic to prevent the Tyranids from multiplying beyond the Imperium's capacity to deal with them. Every world within reach of the Leviathan's advance was to be evacuated and undergo immediate exterminatus wherever possible, so that its biomass could not become new nutrients for the Tyranids' production of new bioforms. With one stark, callous decision, the Inquisitor Lord had inflicted the Imperium's worst act of genocide upon its own since the days of the Horus Heresy. Kryptman was denounced for this action as a radical and a traitor at the highest level of the Imperium, and even by many members of the Inquisition. When migrating orcs claimed a score of former human worlds that had been evacuated, he was finally declared Carta Extremis by the fellow Inquisitors of the Ordo Xenos. Neither a heretic nor a radical warranting execution, but too unstable and eager to use destructive means to be allowed to continue to operate as an Inquisitor. Kryptman was summarily stripped of his title and its rights and responsibilities by the Ordo Xenos, and cast from the Inquisition by his brethren. Yet Kryptman still had loyal allies within the Death Watch. and initiated a plan to halt Hive Fleet Leviathan without the loss of further human life. When a Gene Stealer-infested Space Hulk drifted from the warp, members of the Death Watch loyal to Kryptman captured a brood of those vicious Tyranid bioforms still in stasis. Using the brood of captured Gene Stealers, the Inquisitor engineered a Tyranid invasion within the Orc-held Octarius system, very close to Leviathan's line of advance. The crowded orc cities of Octarius, so teeming with life, were the source of a huge orcish infestation, and soon drew the entirety of Hive Fleet Leviathan into the tight cluster of orc-held star systems that comprised the Greenskins' so-called Octarius Empire.
Hang on, Nixon. Let me see if I understand this. So his plan was to get the Tyranids to fight the orcs.
Right.
And
don't jump ahead.
Didn't see a problem with that. Sorry. Go ahead.
Kryptman's plan seemingly worked, for Leviathan was diverted from its course to Terra, and both orcs and Tyranids were now thoroughly occupied with destroying each other, initiating the conflict known as the Octarius Wall. However, Kryptman seems to have overlooked the fact that whichever side emerges victorious from the Octarius War will surely be far more powerful than they were before. Even though the Octarius War bought the Imperium invaluable time to muster and bolster its defenses, the potential consequences of Kryptman's manipulation of this alien threat are too horrible to contemplate, and ultimately might prove disastrous in the long run.
So where is this idiot? I mean, where is this exiled Inquisitor now?
Currently, he is at the Death Watch Fortress Haltmote.
Yes, and I assume he's there in relations to another Hive Fleet?
Why, yes.
Mm-hmm.
This time a minor Tyranid Hive Fleet known as Tiamat, named after the Tiamat system in which it was first encountered in the 35th millennium. It is a unique phenomenon. A Tyranid incursion fleet which has claimed a cluster of planets without entirely stripping them of biomass.
Really?
Its primary base of operations in the Tiamat system is the jungle world of Xaophoria, the surface of which has begun to tyrannoform into some type of biomechanical psychic resonator, whose purpose remains unknown and worrisome to the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition. Currently, Kryptman and the Fortress Watch Commander are starting to formulate a plan that will see whatever the Tyranids are creating on Xaophoria utterly obliterated. So, brother, what do you think of this genocidal maniac? Unorthodox Inquisitor?
I think you got it right the first time. He's a genocidal maniac. What? He's a rather kooky individual, if we're gonna put this lightly. I think it's funny, anyways, that he did the bare minimum of saying, it's like, hey, you guys should evacuate before we do an exterminatus, and everybody went, oh, okay, and then immediately afterwards he's like, exterminatus. So
you're too slow. I got the pace.
He's like, well, I did my due diligence. Like, you waited like 5 minutes.
It's too slow.
We got like one shuttle that shoved off. I mean, what's wrong with you? But
one of the things I find funny is he comes out with this second plan so that there won't be any further loss of human life. It's like,
because you killed all of them already.
or think this through. Or what really makes me wonder is if they were able to create this poison to kill
why didn't they use
Queen Norn that destroys a significant amount of the Tyranid fleet.
I hear you.
Why not do it again?
Well, okay, to answer that question anyways, I'm betting it goes along with, so the Tyranids, like I said before anyways, we really haven't talked about the Tyranids all that much, but the Tyranids are really actually very fast acting biologically. So I'm thinking anyways that it worked this one time anyways, but the next time they rolled in anyways, it wouldn't work on the next group of Tyranids because they had set up defenses for it. That's my thought process. And who knows? Maybe he just felt like murdering trillions of people. Who knows? It's Kryptman.
It's like, I can't find a lictor. How long did you look? 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
You have the data for the prior poison that you made, right? Yeah. You gonna use that?
No. That won't work.
We aren't even gonna try. No.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you last week, anyways, with Cortez. What do you think, anyways, would happen if Kryptman met up with Guilliman? What do you think that conversation or how that would have worked out?
I think Kryptman would have died.
Why?
Because he committed such giant genocide. It's like, you look at it as like, yeah, you conquered all these worlds and stuff, but look what I did to them. I completely eliminated all of them. That, realm area that you have control of, a good chunk of it's gone. Why? Me?
Well, okay. As opposed to Cortez, I think Kryptman and Guilliman have a little bit more of a same concept. No, bear with me for a second here. They have this understanding that they will do whatever is necessary to keep humanity running as a machine. So a lot of times they will bend the rules or even break them to establish what they need to. Now, mind you, as opposed to Guilliman anyways, Kryptman kind of took that really gung-ho. Yeah. I went a little bit probably far beyond what Guilliman would have done in that situation. But I think anyways that their thought processes are a little bit more aligned.
Doesn't mean that he won't be killed.
Good point.
I do understand your viewpoint, but man, you killed trillions of people. I'm sorry, I can't let that slide. That's ridiculous and stupid. Should have thought of another way.
Honestly, I don't think Guilliman would kill him. I think, though, he would definitely, anyways, literally strip him of all power and put him with it's like, yeah, you've got people that are loyal to you. I have a whole lot more. And you've got Death Watch kill teams that work for you. I have the Ultramarines. So you are not going to do one thing without my knowledge. Well, I might be able to, jump into this plan. How are you going to keep track of me, huh? We are going to literally put an entire squadron of Ultramarines around you, and they all answer to me. And if you do one thing anyways that I go, no, you can't do that, their orders are literally to blow your head off.
Of course, there's the other alternative of just basically have him attached to Inquisitor. The Xenos Inquisitor going, you're no longer an Inquisitor, you're a advisor.
Well, no, that's exactly what I'm saying is that we're going to strip him of all rank and everything anyways. And literally, you're just going to kind of bounce around and help people out anyways with the knowledge that you have on the Tyranids. You will not be able to make orders.
Sorry, what popped my head, though, is he leans over and says, oh, by the way, this is one of the few Inquisitors that actually wasn't an orphan. Well, that was until you annihilated his planet.
So now, guess what? He's an orphan.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them.
And guess what? He's now your boss. Have fun.
So you really think anyways that if he ever actually met up with Guilliman would just straight up kill him?
I think he would either kill him or he'd basically put him in some sort of imprisonment. Because the only thing going for him, and I'm not sure how much that is even now, since there's probably a lot of people that have a lot of information on Tyranids now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
His usefulness is starting to run out.
But at the same time, he is probably the most knowledgeable person in the Imperium anyways when it comes to Tyranids.
Right, which is why I think you probably have him imprisoned or something like that somewhere. Where, you can approach him and talk to him and then you just leave him there. It's that would be the safest option, in my opinion. and he would take the safest option, in my opinion.
I like the way that you say that. The safest option. Yeah, we can't let this guy keep going out because he'll keep bombing.
Other than just shooting him, the safest that retains the information that they need.
Right. I do have actually one more question, and then we do have to move on. What do you think, anyways, would happen if Kryptman met up with Kotias?
I have no clue.
That's kind of a weird question, though, isn't it? I mean, part of me really thinks that Kotias, anyways, wouldn't really care what Kryptman did because, I mean, Kotias is all about killing demons.
Right. Well, I guess it also depends on the situation. Like if he was planning on operating inside of Kotias's territory and decides, oh yeah, I want to nuke this place, I'm pretty sure he would go, no.
Yeah, unless he could actually give, like a reason for it. Like,
yeah,
it's infested with gene stealers and a hive fleet has shown up. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are valid reasons for exterminatus.
Right.
But Kryptman seems to jump the gun a little bit more than the rest of these guys do. Okay, so within his sector, anyways, you think, anyways, he'd be a little bit more defensive? Kotias would? Okay.
Because I think he has both this viewpoint of, okay, this is my zone, almost like my empire, but not.
And we're getting back to that whole pride thing. Yeah.
And then he has started extending outside of that area, but I think he has this viewpoint that, okay, I'm outside of this area. Yes, I still have a lot of power, but it's not, this is a term that somebody that we know uses a lot. It's not my mattress.
I just got a weird thought that would just is kind of great if they did end up meeting each other anyways. And Kotias is listening to Kryptman, and Kryptman is giving his whole thing anyways about how the Tyranids are showing up. And he looks at him and goes, you know what? You would be the perfect successor for me. You should join the Ordo Malleus. My work is complete. I'm out. I know that would never happen, but it's just to me, anyways. Just the concept of that is like everybody around them, anyways, be going, "Oh no, no! This is terrible."
Not only is he going to be in charge, he lost it.
Well, we've kind of run out of time for today, and as usual, anyways, we do want to give, anyways, an Ordo Minoris. So, I was actually
an Eisenhorn.
Yeah, we've kind of run out of time. So at the end of the month, anyways, after we do our Q&A like we normally do, I will probably talk about Eisenhorn because I will do it because Eisenhorn is probably the most famous Inquisitor I can think of, other than maybe Greyfax. I mean, yeah, or Kryptman. Actually, Kryptman's pretty famous. And famous is probably not the right word. It's probably infamous. Yeah.
If he doesn't want to be famous, I'll make him infamous.
Yeah. So before we carry on, anyways, to the Ordo Minoris, what do you think, anyways, of what do you personally think of Kryptman? I've already kind of said he's a nut job, but he's not. Hang on a second. He's not psychotic. He's what do they call it? Sociopath. That's really what he is. He's a sociopath. But what do you think of him?
Well, I think actually originally he wasn't nearly as
sociopathic.
Yeah, when he first started, because he had this. It seems like he had a completely different viewpoint, at least during the first Tyrannic War.
Well, during the first Tyrannic War, he really didn't know a whole lot about the Tyranids,
and it seems like there wasn't much difference that we know of that happened during the second one. I think it was by the time that the third one had come around, he had just really, that's when things had just pretty much gone
off the rails.
Yeah, gone off the rails. And he started thinking way too
extreme,
way too extreme methods. Past even what you would think of when it comes to, like I said, an Archimagos of the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah. Or do I say, instead of extreme, exterminatus?
We
got dad jokes. Anyways, and then he comes up with that dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. Let him fight the orcs. I mean, initially that sounds brilliant. But when you think about the outcome of that, you're going to have Tyranids anyways that have new genomes that are going to be like, they're going to be as powerful. The Gaunts are going to be as powerful space marines by the time they're done. Or the orcs are going to be killing them all off, and they eventually do kill them off. And the orcs are going to be like Krorks.
Yeah.
And they're going to just build their own little empire and just continue to expand.
Oh, they already had their own empire. It would just grow.
No. Okay, first off,
it's the Octarius Empire that's being attacked. Hence, it's the Octarius War.
Right. No. I said the Krorks would have an empire.
Ah.
And as we know anyways...
And then Nazgul would come by and they go, who's this shrimp?
Yeah. Like, flick him out of the universe. But no, I mean, seriously, it sounds like a great idea when he started it, but then when you stop and think about it anyways, the outcomes afterwards, probably the worst decision he's ever made.
Right.
Even more than killing the trillions of people with the Exterminatus.
Right.
But like you said, we do have to get on with the Ordo Minoris. And I was going to talk about the Ordo Chronos, but did you have one that you wanted to talk about?
You mean the Ordo Chronos?
Oh, you were going to talk about the Ordo Chronos?
You can talk about it if you want.
Okay. As long as it's okay with you, Yuxin.
Sure.
Okay. Well, if you have ever heard of the Ordo Chronos, even amongst the senior ranks of the Inquisition, and still fewer have any inkling as to its mission, it is generally believed that this particular Ordo came into being as a result of the study of the effects of the warp travel and the passage of time. Now, due to the unpredictable nature of the warp travel, it has been known that occasionally a vessel will be calmed in the warp. By the time it managed to extricate itself from the immaterium, the crew will have experienced the passage of mere solar months. While in the material universe, many standard centuries have passed. Far less common, however, are those occasions when a vessel has become embroiled in the warp phenomena that has resulted in being expelled from the warp space at a point of a time actually before it set out. The Ordo Chronos, so it is believed, was established in the Jericho Reach in order to combat any temporal anomalies that might arise from these and similar events. This Ordo's Inquisitors feared that if such void travels appeared in the past, they might somehow alter the proper course of events, potentially interfering with the fate of mankind and the Emperor's intention. So, you understand why this would be a problem, right? I mean, this is like the butterfly effect in Jedi level.
Kind of like when the orc goes back in time to take his own gun.
Except for not nearly as silly. But anyways, over several centuries, the Ordo Chronos investigated these instances thought to be related to all manner of temporal phenomena. Their work eventually expanded beyond the original warp-related events to others, perhaps even those of a deliberate nature. Now, this is where it kind of gets interesting. Then, for some unexplained reason, the entirety of the Ordo Chronos disappeared. No one truly knows how many members of the Ordo had, but in a single moment, every Inquisitor linked to this mysterious Ordo vanished. No one living knew how or why they vanished, or if someday their numbers might return. The Ordo Chronos remained the subject of legend amongst those few who knew they actually existed. It was said that some of these individuals stayed eternally vigilant against the doom such an event might presage for the future of humanity itself, should they one day return. Now, by the end of the 42nd millennium, the Ordo Chronos had either returned from their disappearance or had been reestablished with new Inquisitors, as its members began an eternal feud known as the Chronos Strife. Once the resurrection of the Primarch Rabute Gilliman made clear that the imperial dating system itself had fallen deeply into error with the passage of the millennium. Now, by the start of the era Indominus, the Ordo Chronos was involved in an ongoing and bitter internal conflict over the imperial dating system. For the Emperor's calendar, had not survived the passing of the millennia intact. During the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, the standard imperial dating system had provided some idea of the order of events over time. But like anything else the emperor had created, the calendar had become degraded by both dogmatic adherence and thoughtless revisionisms over the century. Various rival dating systems had evolved from the imperial standard, making a true chronicle of the human settled galaxy almost impossible to construct. As the Indominus Crusade's first phase drew to a close, Rabute Gilman calculated the current year by the 5 main factional variants of the imperial calendar to be anywhere between the early 41st millennium and an entire millennium later. And that was leaving out the numerous lesser, more heretical interpretations. Gilman had been hoping to find a solution to the Imperium's tortured dating system, but had instead found there was none. It was just one more item that would ultimately require his personal attention to repair. Well, brother, what do you think of this strange Ordo?
Well, every single time that you mention their order, what pops in my head is Terran 42's Johnny Bravo.
Yes.
Kronos, master of all time. This is like, you woke me up. It's like, I got 15 minutes left before I take you out. It's like, that's a VCR. Even I, Kronos, master of all time, can't fix one of those.
So for those guys of you that don't know anyways of this Johnny Bravo, he wakes up a bear who's sleeping in a cave who calls himself Kronos. And he's going to eat Johnny Bravo because he's woken up before his hibernation was done. And like my brother just eloquently described, he said, but I still got 15 minutes. And he looks over at the blinking clock of 12 o'clock and it's a VCR. Yeah. But what do you think of this Ordo?
Who don't know anything about VCRs,
DVD
I don't even
player.
know how many people would even be able to figure out how to change the time on one of those things.
Let's put it this way: a DVD player. This got the clock on it. Yeah, with the clock. Yeah, with the clock on it. First off, anyways, I don't know who thought, anyways, it was a brilliant idea to put a clock on a VCR and then make it so difficult to actually change the time on it that all it did was just simply blink 12. Those are ridiculous people on Terran 42. But anyways, what do you actually think of this Ordo? They're actually fairly interesting in my opinion, but what do you think?
I think they would have been able to take better track of time if they had disappeared for like a century or so.
Well, maybe they disappeared just simply because it was a necessity.
It's like, okay, this Ordo's been around for a really long time, and it's like, oh crap, we gotta disappear, and they come back, it's like, oh no. We dropped the ball, didn't we?
Yeah,
like, yeah. Oh.
We were supposed to show up in the 30th millennia. Why are we in the 42nd?
It's like, no, we're in the 41st. What? No.
Oh no!
You got it wrong. We have the clock right here. That isn't the right one. Yes, it is.
You need to Cortez's hourglass.
Yeah.
Dang it. But, okay. So me, anyways, the thing that I find interesting about this is that they literally have an Inquisition group, anyways, that is based off of time travel. Marty McFly would be proud.
Well, what I find interesting is the fact that they're trying to see, okay, how do we figure out how to prevent things from going back in time, when what I'd be more concerned about is trying to find ways to, stop people from being stuck in the warp for extremely long periods of time, especially from a military point of view.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're going to come here. They just left. They'll be here in like 3 months. No, they're stuck there in the warp for centuries. They come out and it's completely overrun with orcs and has been forever.
Yeah. Or just understanding anyways how time passes in the Immaterium. Because I mean a good example of this would be Abaddon. He's still kicking and around, and he's not a demon prince. So I mean that would be my goal anyways if I was in the Ordo Chronos. It would be like, okay, so how do we do this in the Materium with all the people that we like? I mean, he's been around for 10,000 years.
And of course, on the other hand, you look at it and you go, okay, well, how long has he actually been alive, though?
Right.
This goes back to that whole time thing.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Kind of like
Euxin. That's exactly what I'm just talking about. In the warp, time it's almost like it's relative.
Yeah.
But it seems like, anyways, with, like, for instance, these guys that pop up, and and by the way, Abaddon's not the only one. There's a lot of, like, Chaos Space Marines that knew the Emperor.
Right.
How are they still alive? I mean, we've talked about it, anyways. In the Materium, anyways, the oldest guy that we know of, anyways, is what, Dante?
No, the oldest guy is Bjorn.
Okay, well, no, okay, a guy that's not in a dreadnought. That's a machine that's helping keep him alive. We understand that. But I mean, the oldest guy that I can think of, anyways, at this point is Dante. The only other guy that came close was the guy that you talked about, anyways, with Alexis Pontus, Barabbas, I want to say. And it wasn't like he was old; it was he fought the Herud, and the way that they attack people is that they've got guns, anyways, that shoot time like really fast. So by the time, anyways, he was done with the Herud campaign, he was estimated to be like 3,500 years old.
Okay, well, I don't think I ever brought up that. Sounds like something that you probably brought up.
No, I brought it up, but the guy you brought up, anyways, was Barabbas, and he was a good friend of Alexis, and you brought up that relationship, which was actually a pretty cool relationship. But on that sad note, anyways, of Barabbas dying, well, folks, that'd be it for this week. Join us next week as we go into the details of the last Ordo Majoris, the Ordo Hereticus.
Fantastic.
Really?
Well, no, but we have to talk about him, right? Might as well grin and bear it. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this box. Feel free to like, follow, subscribe, and comment. And don't forget to check out the shop. We got some cool stuff there, like clothes, pillows, and hats.
Yeah, by the way, Euxin, did you get your hat?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, we'll have to have a picture of that. But don't forget rabbit. Shoot, I said that wrong.
Don't forget the rabbit, Sectar.
Oh, no, you got me.
I get it this time.
Yes. Oh, no. Yes. Don't forget the rabbits. Have a great day. And as always, until next time, this is Ekthar.
And Euxin.
Signing off.